First one, it's on Facilities Rebuild Program Monthly Status Update. Move Councillor Johansson, seconded Jimmy Chen. Are there any questions, discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Carried. Supply of Services Agreement around the Will Buskers Festival Trust, which we had a presentation on earlier in the day.
I haven't got any financial interest, but I know that organise well, so declared an interest.
Okay. I think everyone does. Are there, okay, so would someone like to move the committee recommendation? Yep, Jani Johansson, seconded by Phil Clearwater. Is there any discussion? Yep.
Okay, I'm not happy about this. Certainly the $100,000 underwrite. Does anyone want to talk to that? All right. Have we had a report on this from the last festival?
No, we haven't. No, not the council.
How come?
No. So the financial report, financial position is not completely finalised. It is heading towards either very close to break even or a loss up to 20,000 on the last festival.
Okay, so these guys are asking for an increase in their grant that we've budgeted for in the annual plan, and they want another $100,000.
Yes, they want $100,000 to a one-off $100,000 to transition the management of the festival and also to start the transition back into the central city spaces. So the recommendation is that we don't provide a one-off grant to them, that we provide an underwrite as such to give them financial certainty. And the reason for that is that although there will be costs in moving back to the central city, savings could potentially be identified as well. So we want to put the onus on the trust that yes, we provide financial certainty, but we want every effort to be made to find savings if they can be. In addition, on the Trust's behalf, I've had an initial conversation with a potential external funder, which has been positive, but as we know with those sorts of things, that initial discussion and a sign-off are two very different things. But there is a matter of timing around this that, festivals of this size, they need to keep moving in the planning, and if we delay this or if they don't have financial certainty already, then we're going to put the next festival in a precarious position for delivery.
So this is a little bit like Ellerslie. We bought it some time ago and we've been running it.
We purchased it in 2009, yes.
So when I look through the trust deed on page 355, Article 2.B1, one of the statements is to establish an annual street theatre festival in Christchurch, which is great. I just don't see how a street theatre festival can be costing $2.4 million a year to run. I mean, that sounds like an exceptional sum of money for buskers who generally stand outside and play music or do tricks.
It's around the infrastructure to deliver the festival. So from 2009, it was a $900,000 festival. Again, with majority of festivals in Christchurch since earthquakes, it's been the setting up of temporary infrastructure to provide a venue that has increased costs substantially.
That's a 160% increase in 4 years.
Yeah. So it's the festival delivery in Higley Park is a major undertaking. So the festivals had to deliver not only increased sponsorship and funding, but also revenue streams within the festival. For example, food and beverage is now a substantial revenue stream for the festival, and that takes infrastructure to deliver. So it's been a combination of costs, and then you've got fencing, security, all those sorts of things. And we're moving back into central city spaces that are also unknown, so there could still be security costs, portable toilets, those sorts of things. So it's just to provide the festival with the backing to get through this change.
Okay, well look, I don't think we should be in the events business at all. We don't make any money out of it. I don't have a problem with providing grants to festivals, but I've certainly got a problem with this, and what I would like to suggest is that we have a full report on the Buskers Festival's last financial performance to the Finance Committee on the 8th of April, so that's just 10 days away, and that we consider this there. I think these types of things should be coming to the Finance Committee in the first place. I don't think the Community Committee is the right place for dealing with this type of stuff. And I'd also like at the same time to have a report on the Ellerslie show. If you can get that done within the next 10 days, that would be good. And then we can consider both of those things together.
I don't think that Ellerslie show is ready yet. I mean, there was an agreement with the previous council that after this event, a full review would be undertaken, and I think that's in train, but it won't be ready in 10 days' time.
No?
But the final financial position won't be in train. So
Okay.
the council resolution was within 10 weeks of the end of the show, so that's what's being worked towards.
Okay.
And how long would it take to get a financial report on the previous, on this recent World Buskers Festival?
Well, we're pretty close.
We're close. Not all the invoices have, those sorts of things have even been received in yet.
But I mean, we're April now. That should.
Some suppliers are a little bit.
You know, if we were a commercial organisation, we would have had that sorted out. So I mean, that is my concern: is that when we have no commercial imperatives, costs have been, put all over the place. And I think before we make a decision like this, I'd like to see some clear financial information.
So that's an amendment moved by Raf Manji that the matter be referred to the Finance Committee on the
8th of April.
8th of April for a financial report and consideration of the matter to be referred back here, and seconded by Jamie Goff. All right, so let's discuss the amendment. Yanni?
You'll note in the recommendations that actually there is a report going to the Finance Committee by mid-October, but actually I do have concerns because festivals and events was put in terms of reference, which we've just voted on under the Community Committee, and now we seem to be changing that on this individual basis. So I think what's needed in my view is a workshop around events. We want to have a workshop. There's a number of opportunities I think to get better synergy around the events. I mean, for example, the events in Hagley Park over a month all seem to have their own separate overheads for bringing in infrastructure, marquees, stages. It seems kind of ludicrous. So there will be opportunities, I think, but we need, in terms of having a really good understanding for the council, what are the events we're supporting, how are we supporting them, what is the long-term view. I do think it's appropriate to do that as part of a long-term plan. I mean, we've got so many other pressures on us at the moment. I do agree that we should be getting regular reports back on events, particularly ones that we own, around their performance, and that's why, I led the charge to get that on Ellerslie, which I think is, overdue, but in terms of, we should have had it last year, but we're going to do it this year. That's in train, that's happening. I have no problem getting a full report on the buskers. I think it's important, but I would be concerned that any delay around this transition would adversely affect next year's show. So, I'd certainly like to see from staff, what the implications would be on the upcoming show before I agree to this amendment. And I would be concerned that...
Richard, could you respond to that? Because I think the council generally would like to hear, what are the implications of a delay until the 8th of April?
If there's a delay until then, which then would move through to the next council,
the following week,
potentially some key staff will move on to other things because they require certainty. And they are very key to the delivery of this festival.
4 weeks.
Yes, because we're already pushing that. We have some key staff who also have other positions outside of New Zealand, so they need to make decisions.
I understand, but you can see the challenge that the council's got. We're being asked to make a substantial financial decision without access to the report on the performance of the last festival of this kind. And I know that, we committed to this festival back in 2009. We all know that the satisfaction surveys show that this is something that people love to be involved in on every level. And, but we've got to be fiscally responsible at the same time. But anyway, Tim Scandrett was next.
The whole, if that's sooner, would that work?
Would it work if it came to the committee of the whole next week?
that would certainly be better. If I may, if I can just provide a wee bit more detail of the financial performance of the festival. So it has, since council purchased it, it has always operated at a very small surplus. This last year, as I say, the draft position we had last week is a $16,000 loss, but there's still some variation to come through, and that could alter very slightly either side of it. So that is well within the surpluses that the festival has. And saying that, the festival, if it generates a surplus, needs to apply that to its charitable objects, because it is a charitable trust that operates it. So we're not there to make a profit or loss anyway.
But
So
is
it's certainly not in a precarious financial situation by any means. It's probably our strongest performing festival in terms of sponsorship.
And was this largely driven off the shift into Hagley Park?
Yeah,
and
just
the costs
around
associated
the higher costs of the temporary situation we're in.
Okay. Tim?
You guys wouldn't say it's almost breaking even, it's just a wee bit over, but that also, we've got the $230,000 grant, so it's $230,000, then we've got the break even, so it's actually, just like Ellerslie,
That's
etc., there is actually a grant involved in that at all, so we're just talking about the operational, but the grants are included.
That's right, it does cost us $230,000 a year.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that.
Right.
With regards to the amount that we're being asked, is there a saving included in that? As in, so we've asked being put in $100,000, but is there a saving behind that? Is it streamlining the process?
It's to one of the things that hasn't happened since we purchased it was to transition the management to, all the knowledge around, particularly the talent creative side of the festival, that Jodie Wright holds, to someone else. When we purchased it, Jodie was clear, as I think she has been since, that she wants to move out of this festival at some stage. And to do that, you need someone to pass it to, and you need to retain Jodie to pass on that knowledge. We pull people onto all sorts of other things, and we just got to the stage we need to resource that, otherwise the change will never happen. So it's a one-off period, and it coincides with it shifting it back into central city spaces. So it's to get through that, and as I say, we'll work with trustees, and with our support we'll try and bring another funding to cover that, but because of the course of time we can't go through months trying to get that, because staff need certainty to make their commitments for the next year.
So it is a one-off payment?
That's right.
Yeah. Phil, did you want to? No. Andrew?
The $100,000 in the resolution is expressed as an underwrite rather than a fund. That would imply that there are either some savings to be found or some other funding to be found to mitigate that $100,000, so that it actually remains an underwrite rather than a fund. What steps have been taken to either find savings or other funding sources?
Well, as I say, I've had a discussion with one potential external funder, Poker Machine Trust, and that was positive in the first instance, but never bank them until they're sorted. So again, that'll take a process of months. It needs to go to their board. So again, just to work through that's going to put us too far behind the 8 ball, and staff would have moved. And also saying it's an underwrite, that is to say to the trust, we expect you to look for savings within your operation, and as you may bring on stream new venues in the central city, look for ones which reduce your operating costs. So that we can reduce that call of 100,000.
So you believe there is real potential for savings?
I think there is potential, yes.
Paul Lonsdale?
We're moving, obviously current staff are working on this festival every year. That particular staff are not now working on it, so there must be a cost saving for the council from a staffing perspective.
We've been providing a staff member as supply services, but we recover that from the festival. So, so it just balances out.
All right. So, Councillor Manji, do you want to leave it as the Finance Committee on the 8th of April, or?
And there's a reason for this. And Yanni mentioned that he'd prefer to have it in the community committee. But I think the problem that we've had, and that I'm observing on a regular basis, is a lack of financial discipline everywhere. And we have to start getting some of these decisions to the Finance Committee, who will look at it through the prism of the numbers and not whether it sounds great or feels great or whatever. And I mean, here is a great example. So we've already done the annual plan. We have reduced the funding already to 195. They're asking for the funding to go back up another $35,000, which is not going to happen unless it comes from somewhere else in the annual plan. And they want another $100,000. It's like, no, it's not going to happen. But the fact is, you couldn't even make a proper decision without having the financial information from the previous show. So if they wanted this to happen, they should have come with the right information. So, you know, this kind of stuff's going to have to start coming to the Finance Committee for proper review, because it's not getting proper review at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between the functions, really, of the two committees in the sense that, you know, absolutely the Community Committee in terms of festivals and the overarching approach and, you know, the philosophy that sits behind them and grants. But in terms of the finance role, I think that's probably right. Tim?
I think there are also a couple of other things. I think that for the newer councillors, that a total overview and a workshop of the total events that we support, like Jazz Festival, not just the big ones that we've been talking about, but right across the board. We need a really good understanding of the strategies behind those so we can either totally support them, because it's essential that potential sponsors see what we're supporting and get clear what we're not. So, and that's because that's going to make it crucial for staff to try and bring in those sponsors, which is harder and harder to do. So I think that's one. The other thing is, you know, we've heard it, and it is true that we're getting more and more costs because of the earthquake and bits and pieces, but there must come a time, and it's going to be a lot of kicking and screaming, that we sit down with those big festivals and events and say we've actually got to cross-pollinate what you're doing in Hagley Park. There is a cost to the ratepayers of Christchurch to repair Hagley Park. So if we can bring that together as much as possible, and if we can use the same equipment as much as possible throughout those festivals, and I'm sure there will be a bit of kicking and screaming, but it's not business as usual. We do have tight purse strings, and we've got to be realistic, and so do they. Thank you.
So the recommendation is, the amendment is that the report be referred to the Finance Committee on the 8th of April. We've heard that may mean the loss of key staff. So that's the choice that people have to make. So I'll put the amendment. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Well, I think we're going to have to do a vote on that because I couldn't tell whether it was carried or lost. So if we could have a...
You want to 24th April council, or you talked about our
No, it can't do because if it goes to the 8th of April, it can't come to the... Is that the soonest council it can come to after the 8th? So a chair's report to the council on the 10th, at least that would bring it forward instead of to the 24th of April. Okay, so we'll change that to the 10th of April. So can people vote yes or no to that or abstain?
I haven't.
Oh, right.
There's always one.
It didn't show. Right, the amendment's carried. So with the amendment carried, that becomes the substantive motion. So I'll put the substantive motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. Carried. Thank you very much. Now we're on to the